because I've been a great admirer of our speaker since he and his family moved to Kentucky from Charlottesville some 11 months ago. David Femister is the state director of the Nature Conservancy and has a blue chip education and career background and is our direct link to significant resources of the largest conservation organization in the world, with over 1 million members, active programs in 50 states, plus 35 countries and over 600 offices worldwide. Now, in their mission, land and water conservation is paramount. And similarly, clean, potable water in third world countries is certainly a particular focus of this Rotary Club and, of course, many others. And as you know, Louisville has the unfortunate distinction of having too few trees and excessive heat, especially in specific areas per the study of the recent commissioned urban tree canopy study. These areas were also found to have poor air quality, flooding and water problems, and health problems. So of particular importance to Louisville today, and certainly to me is, with my tree interest, is that the full national resources of the Nature Conservancy are being unleashed here to help us overcome our unfortunate tree canopy and heat island problems. This is a very big deal for Louisville because we're one of only a handful of American cities that are getting connected to the Nature Conservancy's new urban conservation program. So David's arrival here on a white horse is a major blessing, and I've been a member of the Nature Conservancy for most of my career, and I've never been more proud to be a member and a supporter. The mayor wants us to be the most compassionate city in America. And with the work that the Nature Conservancy is now doing in Louisville, I want him to add this to the moniker, and the healthiest and most resilient city in America. So please help join me in welcoming David Femister to the Louisville Rotary. David?
Well, thank you so much, Henry. Sometimes I feel like that white horse may have a little mud on its flanks and occasionally throws a shoe, but I will do my best to ride it. I'm really grateful for this invitation and the opportunity to be with you today. This is an impressive group, and I would probably be a little bit nervous anyway, but especially when I see some of the specific expertise in the room on the issues I'm going to be talking about, I will confess that my pulse is not exactly at a resting pace. But mostly I'm excited and very happy to be with you. Before I get into my formal agenda, I just want to say a word of thanks. First, I want to thank each and every one of you, not just for your attendance and attention today, but to your service with Rotary. This is perhaps a topic for a whole other conversation, but we live, there we go. We live in an age, at least in some quarters, of retreat from community and connection. And as you know, Rotary has always stood for the common good, for reaching out, for giving some of yourself to the larger community. And especially considering the challenges we all face as a society, those values and your service are so important. So I'm grateful to all of you. I also want to say thank you again to Henry Heiser, not just for this invitation to speak with you today, but also for everything that he does for Louisville and the larger state of Kentucky. I think most of you know that Henry is one of the city's leading advocates for our urban forests and our neighborhood trees, and his generosity, commitment, and advocacy on that issue leave us all in his debt. So thank you for your friendship, and thank you for your leadership, Henry. I'm grateful. Having a little trouble with my clicker. So let me give you a brief overview of my presentation today. First, I want to give you a very brief personal introduction. Oh, thank you. And I also want to then introduce you more importantly to the organization I work for, the Nature Conservancy. I want to talk to you about why the Conservancy is investing in cities, and then I want to take that conversation from global cities to North America and then right here to Louisville. And then last, I'll end with a few concluding comments on how we might work together. So, again, as Henry said, I'm David Femister. I'm the state director for the Nature Conservancy in Kentucky. I've been with the Conservancy for 13 years, but I've only been in this job for 11 months. So I was telling someone I was telling Greg, the new president, I said, enjoy the title new as long as you can. I'm about to lose any slack I've been given on that. So I could give you my resume of how I got to you and that standard introduction, but I want to instead take you back about 41 years, and that's me with my parents when I was about 2 years old at the Maury River in Rockbridge County, Virginia. I spent as much time as I could growing up exploring the fields and forests, rivers and streams that were literally right outside my front and back doors where I grew up. And, I had poison ivy every summer. I had windburn in the winter. I had dirt under my nails, and I had cuts and bruises on my legs. So I was a little kid, and I fell in love. I was a skinny little kid that fell in love with nature. And when I started working for the Nature Conservancy some years later, I realized right away that I'd found an organization that was a perfect match for my passions, my interests, my commitment to the natural world and all the people that depend on it. I love my job because the Nature Conservancy gives me a chance to give back, to make a difference, and hopefully to leave both of my kids with the ultimate inheritance, a healthy and more vibrant world. So that's me. Let me give you a little introduction to this organization that means so much to me. The Nature Conservancy's mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. And following that famous Margaret Mead adage, we were founded by a small group of concerned citizens back in 1951. And since then, we've grown to be, as Henry said, the world's largest conservation organization. We have over 1 million members, programs in all 50 states, and operations in 35 different countries. We also have an impressive record of success, and I think most notably, we've been involved in the direct conservation of over 130 million acres and over 5,000 river miles worldwide. Today, we work on 3 main fronts to advance our mission, and it's an organizing framework we call Protect, Transform, and Inspire. So we're working to protect lands and waters at an unprecedented scale. We're working to transform how businesses, communities, societies use and value nature through innovative policies, lasting partnerships, and sound science. And lastly, we are working to inspire leaders and empower new ambassadors for conservation. I often tell staff and others I talk to, just as important as what we do is how we do it. So I want to give you just a brief introduction to our guiding principles, what we call our organizational DNA. I won't list them all, but I do want to emphasize we are known to be non-confrontational, we are science-based, we are relentlessly nonpartisan, we are value-driven, and we are solution-oriented. So one element that I did not have on that list is the Nature Conservancy has an unwavering commitment to self-evaluation and self-improvement and continued evolution. And that's really a great transition to the next part of my talk, which is to explain why a group with nature in our very name is investing so heavily in cities. So we are in the midst of an historic migration in this world, a migration of people from rural areas into cities. The world is urbanizing, the middle class is growing, and we're confronting a changing climate. And those are 3 mega trends that are going to directly impact all of our lives and all of our relationship to nature. So our current global population, this is what things look like now. Our current population stands at about 7 billion folks. And you can see on that chart the relative size of our urban populations. This is what we have to look forward to in 2050. There are also 3 other numbers I want to put in your head today and hope that you'll remember. And they are 70, 80, and 5. 70 is by the year 2050, 70% of the world's population will live in urban areas or cities. That's over 6 billion people. When many of you were born, the population of the entire planet was only 2 billion people. Those cities will consume 80% of the world's natural resources, even though they only occupy 2% of the planet's surface. And that's going to place incredible demands on those resources and on the infrastructure needed to deliver them. And lastly, speaking to that point, the World Economic Forum estimates that we need to invest as a planet $5 trillion every year from now until 2030 to have the sort of infrastructure we need to provide people with the services, including clean water, that they need. So these are serious challenges that we're facing. And it's precisely why cities need to invest in becoming more resilient and utilizing nature and natural solutions to address many of those challenges. So, of course, historically, we have disregarded nature when we've planned and developed our cities. We've fragmented natural systems such as wetlands and urban forest, only to have to come back and supplant them with expensive man-made solutions like water treatment plants and seawalls. But here's what we're now learning. Nature and natural systems can provide these vital services to us in a way that man-made infrastructure cannot. And nature can do it in an elegant way, in ways that are cost-effective, and ways that bring a host of co-benefits. So the Nature Conservancy submits that by supporting conservation and strengthening the connection between people and nature, we can fundamentally change the relationship between nature and cities in a way where both can thrive. So about 3 years ago, About 3 years ago, the Nature Conservancy launched our Resilient Cities program globally, or what we often call our urban conservation effort here in North America. And in doing so, we established 6 ambitious goals for this program. The first is improving water quality and mitigating and preventing flooding, protecting coastal communities from storm surge and sea level rise, alleviating poor air quality and urban heat island effects, safeguarding urban biodiversity, reconnecting people with nature, and fundamentally establishing the Nature Conservancy as the green partner of choice for cities, governments, and industry as we all tackle these challenges. Sorry, I'll get it eventually. So this is our urban conservation network that we established just this past year to begin to deliver solutions and refine our strategies. And what I want to point out about this network is that it deliberately promotes the alignment of our work across different geographies, and it really allows us to use local results to influence global policies and global strategies, and vice versa. I won't get into all the details of the network here, but I do want to point out that Louisville and Chris Chandler, our Director of Urban Conservation, sit in the very center, both literally and figuratively, of this network. I will say, I spoke to Phil Tamplin, and I said, I've been on this job for 11 months, and there are only a few decisions that I've made that I absolutely know are the right ones, and one of those is hiring Chris Chandler. So the Nature Conservancy, The Nature Conservancy officially launched our program in Louisville just back in January, and we did so knowing that Louisville faces many of the same conservation challenges that cities are facing across this country and across the globe. And I'll just point out 3. First and foremost, the city is losing its urban tree canopy. The urban tree canopy assessment by the Davie Resource Group that Henry mentioned documented that the city has lost 7% of its trees since 2004. That equates to about 6,500 acres of urban forest, or about 54,000 trees per year. So these trends are likely to accelerate, unfortunately, in the near term as we continue to lose ash trees from the emerald ash borer, an invasive exotic insect. The city also suffers from a pronounced and growing urban heat island effect. An urban heat island is simply a pronounced difference between city temperatures and the temperatures of the outlying surrounding areas. It is sometimes up to 20 degrees hotter in downtown Louisville during the summer than it is out in the countryside. And as many of you know, Louisville is also under a consent decree with the EPA to address its combined sewer overflow issue. Sewers regularly dump raw sewage directly into the Ohio River and its tributary, posing a threat to fishermen, boaters, and swimmers alike, and also contributing to water quality problems in the larger Mississippi and Ohio River drainages. So I will confess that my title on the previous three slides was somewhat purposely inaccurate, or at least complete, because of course these are not conservation challenges, these are Louisville's challenges. Because of a loss of tree canopy, increasing urban heat, and combined sewer overflows, we have negative health impacts in this city. Poor air quality and water quality has a direct effect on our health and literally the survival of some of the city's citizens. These health impacts in turn impact our economy, from increased sick days, lost productivity, increased healthcare costs, even companies deciding whether or not to relocate in our city based on air quality metrics. So I won't walk through this whole list, but you'll see that it's extensive. And this list that I have in front of you is by no means exhaustive. Now, I will say that nature, trees, green infrastructure is not the only solution to these challenges. But I will also say very strongly that they must be a critical and vital part of the solution. Consider the fact that the urban tree canopy assessment demonstrated and documented that Louisville's trees currently deliver $330 million in annual benefits to the citizens of Louisville. Those benefits come in capturing 18 billion gallons of stormwater, as well as hundreds of thousands of pounds, even million pounds of pollutants from carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and other particulates that irritate human lungs and affect our health. And the study goes on to note that if the canopy continues to decline, so too will those benefits. So indeed, transformative investments are needed in the city's trees and its green infrastructure to reverse these current trends and ensure that Louisville becomes a healthier, more vibrant, and more resilient city in the future. And I stand before you after outlining these problems to say there are real reasons for hope and optimism. First, there is real city and civic leadership on this issue, and I want to take my hat off and compliment Mayor Fisher and his staff, the Institute for Healthy Air, Water, and Soil, and Henry Heiser, who has a new organization, Trees Louisville, among many others who are working hard on this issue, and they are making progress. I will also stress that, and this is important to the Nature Conservancy as a science-based organization, that the city and these partners are investing in science so we really know what the problem is and how to create meaningful and lasting solutions to most effectively direct it. Again, I'll mention the urban tree canopy assessment, Dr. Brian Stone from Georgia Tech doing incredible work on the urban heat island, and Ted Smith, and among others, leading efforts on targeted air quality monitoring throughout the city. And then I will say that there are big, important, necessary goals out there for us all to work towards, including returning the city to a 45% tree canopy by 2052. So let me also say that there are challenges out there, or at least issues we as a community need to address for us to be successful. First, investing in green infrastructure will require real investments. Something that yields us $330 million in benefits, like our urban trees, is going to require hundreds of millions of dollars in investment to restore and expand over the coming decades. And of course, that is not small change. I will point out, though, as a point of reference, that the new Ohio River Bridge and the associated road work has a price tag of $2.6 billion. But we all have to recognize that we are not going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars solely through private donations or foundations. And we're going to have to think together and creatively about raising the capital we truly need. Second, I want to stress the importance of all stakeholders working together on this issue. I firmly believe we need to focus on the canopy and not the credit. And then lastly, and my staff has heard me say this many times, this is primarily not a tree issue, it is a people issue. And I firmly believe that investing in green infrastructure also means investing in people, including some of the city's most disadvantaged and downtrodden. This plan, restoring urban tree canopy in Louisville, cannot be simply a top-down owned issue. It needs to be owned and embraced neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, and yard by yard. We all know that trees need sunlight, water, and soil to thrive. I would submit they also need local trust and local pride to grow. So let me offer just a few quick thoughts on what the Nature Conservancy's role might be. I'm going to go ahead and click through this so it all comes up, since I'm having some trouble with my pointer. There we go. First, I will say, in reference to the slightly muddied white horse, that the Nature Conservancy does not have all the answers. We are new to town, and the last thing Chris or I want to do when coming into a room like this is to imply that we have all the answers. We don't. We do, however, have a 40-year history in Kentucky of using sound science and working with partners to bring creative solutions to challenging environmental issues. We also, and Henry referenced this, as a larger organization, we have not just Chris's skills, local expertise, and connections, but we have connections to our larger organization where we are working on these same sort of issues in Chicago and in cities in China, in cities in California and elsewhere. And we bring some of those resources to bear on Louisville's challenges, including some of our programs like Healthy Trees, Healthy Cities, our Leaders for Environmental Action for the Future, which is about training urban youth to be more environmentally engaged, and our Don't Move Firewood campaign. So I've outlined a lot of issues and a lot of challenges, and I would say, despite all of those, the Nature Conservancy is quite bullish on both the future of nature of Louisville and nature in Louisville. Indeed, we envision a future for Louisville where all residents enjoy clean air and clean water. They enjoy cooler summers and abundant and accessible green space. They enjoy an expansive and healthy network of shade trees all across the city. We also envision a future where all of Louisville's citizens, including civic leaders like you and school children, recognize the value that nature plays in their lives, and they all work together to ensure that nature remains an essential foundation of Louisville's growth, its prosperity, its character, its health, and its resilience. So what can you do? Well, I will just offer a few simple things, and after seeing your four-way test and learning more about your organization, I know many of you are already putting these practices to work long before my talk. But I would say first, learn. Learn about the value of nature in your city and your neighborhood, what the threats to it are, and what you can do. I would ask you to be involved. Be involved in the decisions Louisville is making now on what sort of future it wants for its citizens and for your kids. Volunteer. Be a leader. And perhaps most importantly, and certainly whenever in doubt, plant a native tree. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Thank you, David. I think we have about 10 minutes, and we will open the mic for questions from the audience. I have a question. I noticed, Reese, I noticed on your presentation, you had neighborhoods and their coverage. Where can someone get that information? I didn't get a chance to see Frankfurt Avenue or Clifton. You know, how can you find out about your coverage rate?
Yeah, the urban tree canopy assessment is up on the city's website, and that has, in there you can access it and look up. They have both maps and tables showing where the neighborhoods are and where their coverage is. I don't know if I have the exact website address, but you can get it through the city's
Okay.
web.
Office of Sustainability webpage.
Thanks, Chris.
Wow. Alice.
Thank you for being here today. I wanted to ask the Nature Conservancy's take on Kentucky Attorney General's decision to join other attorneys general in challenging EPA clean air and water regs.
Well, the Nature Conservancy does not have an official position on the Clean Power Rule. The Nature Conservancy does have climate as one of the 5 pillars of our global work. And I will say that we believe the science is very clear that climate change does pose a threat to both our natural systems and human health. So we're working on a number of fronts. Here in Kentucky, we are focusing less on the policy and more on opportunities to sequester carbon and other air pollutants through the restoration and protection of our forest lands. But we don't have an official position on the Attorney General's decision there. Thank you for the question, though, Alice.
David, I live in the middle of a lot of oxygen just outside of town. But if we decided we want to put 1 million trees in here and 1 million trees in Lexington and 1 million trees all these different places, silly question, are there enough trees? Where do we get them?
Well, it's actually not a silly question at all, Dick, and I appreciate it. Chris Chandler and I have been talking about this a lot. There actually currently are shortages at nurseries, not just of trees overall, but it's really important that we plant the right trees. It's important that we utilize our native species that are native to Kentucky, and it's important that we plant the ones that are going to thrive in the environment where they're put. Urban areas can be challenging places for a tree to grow, and so certain species do a lot better than others. And currently, nurseries are not able to keep up with the demand. So I think you can add it to the list of how we can work with nurseries to ensure there's adequate growing stock for us.
I'm Ned Long. Is this on?
It is, yes.
I live on the east end of town, and I want to compliment you for what you said, because this is something that affects us. Even if you live outside of Louisville and come into Louisville, it's effective. Is there a simple rule that if you take a tree out, you got to put a tree in, or give the money to an organization to put a tree in where it's needed?
No, unfortunately, there is not.
That's a very simple solution.
Well, and I will say that the tree commission that Henry Heiser co-chaired with K.D. Schneider has been working on a tree ordinance for the city of Louisville. Louisville is, I think, one of the only cities of its size that doesn't have a comprehensive tree ordinance to ensure we're protecting the trees that we have. And that is a policy step that the community, I think, needs to take to move forward.
David, I'm sure you'll be here a few minutes after the meeting to
will.
answer any questions along with Chris. And before we wrap up our meeting, thank you so much. Our next meeting